Okay, so good afternoon. Welcome to, yeah, this is week 4, right? Yeah, week 4. Yeah, we're pushing forward. So in our last class, we talked about state management, right? And we looked into GetX. And yeah, we said we are going to build an application and we're going to make use of that application, to understand state management using GetX, right? So yeah, we're able to do some setup, right? We're kind of looking at building just a store application, right? Yeah, so what we're going to do, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to take a step back, right? So we get to just run through, GetX, right, and its functionalities, right, before we go straight into building stuff, right? I know, we kind of did some setup. You saw some stuff like controller. We're extending GetX controllers and all those stuff like that. So yeah, so let's just take a step back and then let's see how much we can, kind of understand, what GetX is all about, right? So like we said in the last class, right, that we had, so GetX basically is actually a Flutter framework. It's actually light. And one of the things that it does is that it provides you with tools and utilities for efficient state management, right? Dependency injection and route management in Flutter. So it actually just simplifies the development process, right, by giving us these functionalities. And it was designed to actually be, something you can use easily with minimal boilerplate code. I know we understand what a boilerplate code is, right? So there's no much coding, no much unnecessary stuff. We just, kind of take a lot of things for us, right? So we're just going to just go through the core functionalities, just an overview. We talked about it in the last class, but let's see if we can actually demonstrate these functionalities, right? Before we go into building, the application. So the very first thing we'll look at is the concept of state management, right? So GetX has several approaches actually for state management that kind of allows us to choose. We basically just have to choose the one that we actually need. Now, it's basically in two forms, like we said. There's a reactive state management. And actually, this is the most popular approach in GetX, where you define reactive variables, right? Reactive variables, they have a type called RX, right? Reactive variables, okay? And what happens is that they automatically update the UI when their values would change, right? When their values change, they update the UI. So let's do a quick demo. I'm still going to use this, right? So we have our home class. So this is where we're displaying stuff. So in this our controller, I'm going to create let me just we're going to just do a count stuff, right? Just to explain this. So I'm going to call it counter controller. So this is where we're going to have all our logic controller .dart. Okay, so we're going to create our controller. I'll call it counter controller. And what it does is that we're going to extend the GetX controller, right? We're extending the GetX controller. So we now have, it's actually an abstract class and it has a lot of things in it. So I'm going to create a variable called count, and I'm going to initialize it to 0. And I will make this variable an observable variable. And how I'm just going to do that is I'm going to say .obs, right? And you can see this is an observable obs rx of what int. So it returns an rx, what is a reactive variable, right? Because of course it's 0, so it's of type int. So I'm going to so this is an observable variable. Okay. Now let me just create a function to increase that. So void increments. So all I just want to do is just increment my count variable. So I have this logic in my controller class. So we're not going to be having logics in our UI, right? So we abstract that. Now, how do we now get to use it in the UI? Now, in our home.dart, we already have this text here, right? We already have this welcome to class. So let's say I want to say welcome to class 1 or welcome to class 2 and all those stuff like that. So let me add, so we have a scaffold that has an app bar body. So let me just give it a floating action button so we can use that to so floating action button. Now for the unpressed, so let me just bring this down here. This, okay, don't worry about that. So for now, let me just give an empty, right? And then the floating action button should have a child, which is a widget, right? And I'm just going to use an icon. So sorry. Yeah. Think this should, yeah. Okay, let's use this. Okay, so that's that. So you can see we have our floating action button here, right? All I did was just do Control S, right? Of course, we know the hot reload feature for Flutter just updates our UI easily, right? So I'm not worried about color. So let's don't worry about that. Now, I want to be able to, increment, let's say welcome to class. I want to have something like welcome to class 4 or welcome to class 1. When I click on it, welcome to class 2, welcome to class 3, and just to be able to increase that. Okay, now because we are using we're actually talking about the reactive state management, right? I need to pass in the count variable from our counter controller. I need to pass in this because this is holding our count. I need to be able to call this in our home.dart, right? Now, if I just do something like this, so yeah, this is also, I'm also going to show you dependency injection here. But now let's create an instance of our class, right? Which is the counter controller. I'm going to say final. I can decide to just make things up. Just say counter controller. I'll call it controller. I'll use the variable and then I'll say get dot what put. So this is going to, what do we want to put? We want to put in the word counter controller, right? So this gives us what, so it's basically just creating what, an instance. Okay. Now what I want to do is, so I want to just say counter, that's controller dot count. So that should give me that, but I'm going to just put this here, right? So let's see. So invalid const. Okay, so we need to change this because we need it to be able to update. So now let me just run this, right? You can see we have welcome to class what 0, right? Welcome to what class what 0 because the default value was what 0. Now I want to be able to click on this to increment the value, right? So let me say here count controller dot increment, right? That was what we called it, right? Good. So since we just have only just this in our scope, we kind of don't really need to, we can just do this, right? We can just do this instead, right? And that would still give us what we need. So when I click on this, right now, the thing is this is actually incrementing the value, right? This is incrementing the value. Like I could, so let me change just for us to see. Let's switch to let's switch to this because I want to carry out another operation, right? I want to print just to the console, right? Let me print controller. Right. So let me just, yeah. So let me go to my console. So when I click on this, it increments it, and you can see that count is 2, right? Here, count is 1. We refreshed it. So that now when I increase again, count is 3, but it's not reflecting. It's not changing, right? But we just made that variable an observer variable, which is meant to listen to what changes, right? It's meant to be reactive. It's meant to update the UI when its value change. But its value has changed now. It's now in 3, but the UI is not updated. We are still seeing welcome to class 1. So what we now do is that we are going to wrap this text widget with an OBX, right? Which is an observable, right? So in order to get that, so I'm just going to cut this, and then we have OBX, right? So the OBX, this is the simplest reactive widget in what GetX. So all you do is just passing your RX variable in the root scope and all that. So what does this mean? I'm just going to say OBX. I could do this, right? And since we just have one thing, right? We just have one widget there. So I'm just going to do this instead, and I'll paste my text there. So what happens is this: because we have wrapped this text, we are now making this text to what reactive, this widget. So it should now listen to what updates, and then kind of update the UI when this count variable what changes, right? So I'm just going to Control X, and you can see it's 3, and you can see 4, 5, 6, and the likes, right? So that is the reactive what state management, right? That's a reactive what state management, when it comes to GetX. But we also have the simple state management also. This particular approach, what we do is that we use a widget called the Get Builder, and it will update the UI only when the update function is actually what called in the controller, right? So what I'm going to do, I'll just update this. So instead of making this observable, I'll just make it 0, right? And I'll have this. But now, if I want to use the simple state management, I have to call the update what method or function, right? So this is for manual what update. Basically, what this update function is going to do is that it's just going to manually trigger the UI updates. That's just what it's going to do. It's going to manually what trigger it. So after the count has been it has increased, it will call the update function to manually what trigger a UI update, basically telling the UI, look, there has been a change in the variable. Okay, rebuild, right? So how do we implement this, right? How do we implement this? Because when I save this, if I save this, you can see we have an error because it says type rxint is not a subtype of int in the function and blah, blah, blah. You understand? We're trying to use an OBX here, and it does not recognize, it doesn't see this count as an what, a reactive variable, doesn't see it that way. So I'm just going to copy this out, or I can just click on this and then okay, can't remove this. So let's take this out. And then I'm going to take out the OBX. Okay, I think I've removed some extra stuff. So this is the text. This is the OBX. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what do we now do? So what we're going to now do is this. This is how we're going to update it. We are going to wrap the text in a get what builder, right? So let me take this. So I call the get builder, right? Now the get builder, you have to pass in a builder function, right? So basically the builder is basically just a widget function that you're going to actually just what pass in. Okay. But part of what you also do is to what indicate the what controller class, which in our case is the counter controller, right? And then so let me just bring this down. So for our builder, I'll just do control space, right? Or if you can, so it takes a, controller, and then it's more like an instance, right? So since we just have one thing, which is text, so I'm going to paste my text here, right? So we still have an rxint issue here. So let me see where that's coming from. Controller, this, that. Okay. So let me check my counter controller. Okay, so var count and then increment this and then that. Okay, so let me do a restart, right? Just to be sure that nothing is being held. Okay, so let's be sure. Okay, so what do we have? So we have our increment function, and then we have this, we have that. So we are not seeing any text here. So you need to call. So yeah, we have not, we need to instantiate. So get.put. Oh, I commented this out. Okay. Okay. So I don't want to, I can do something like this because I want to use this my controller instance, right? So let's clear that. So it seems, let's figure out what the issue is here. Okay. So each child must be laid out exactly once. So scaffold has multiple child. Okay, so I think we may have, let me see our body center child. Okay. Get builder, and then the builder gives us a text. Okay. Okay, floating action. So let's just rerun this. Okay, so storage service. Okay, so I think we are good now. So let's see what we here. So we can see, okay, this gives us 1. So let's see if it will give us 2. Yeah, it gives us 2. So it manually updates the what UI because of the update what function, right? Because of the update what function. So well, if whichever one you actually want to use is up to you, but the reactive state management is actually more popular, is most popular, the most popular approach actually in GetX. Okay, so yeah, Collins, go ahead.
Like I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
This get builder, how does he know the exact controller to use?
That is why we passed in this
What if
counter controller here.
this is the type of the object I know, but like what if you instantiated two controllers like with the get.put? How does he know the exact object to use? Don't know if you get what I'm
now
saying.
now this is the object I'm using, this is the one I'm using, right? Okay, so let's assume, okay, this is basically what you're saying. Let's assume I want to pass in now here, let's say I want to do this. Do you understand this, what I just did now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically using this instance here, this one,
Mm.
because this is also
Yes.
an object. Good. So let's run that, right? So I want to increment 6. It's still the same. It doesn't change. So I can either use this, I can decide to, kind of close this out, right? And just use this.
Mhm.
Or I can use, so any of them actually would work.
But like it's a bit confusing because what if he add another line, let's say second controller, just after the first one?
After
Let's
this
say
first one.
final, second controller. Yes.
Now,
On
the
just
thing
under
is,
under that one.
you mean something like this.
Yes, exactly.
Now, the
Just do that.
now the question is, why are you creating two instances of the same class? That's another question I'm asking you.
Yeah, but I don't have a use case now, but like there might be a use case. Let's say the controllers are parameterized. Let's say when you're constructing them, one is suited for a different purpose because it has another parameter as its constructor. So how does this get builder know the particular object to pull out from
You will be the
inside
one
wherever
to
you put it?
you'll be the one in such a use case, which I'm yet to think of. You'll be the one to decide. So Gabriel, it will not just figure it out. And besides, one thing you should understand is it's just creating an instance, which this gives it access to everything. Now, if you're making your controller shouldn't actually be parameterized. If you want to now parameterize your controller, let's say you're basically trying to inject something in it, right? You
Yeah,
just create an instance. With that instance, you're fine. You don't need to create two. I'm trying to think of where I have to create two instances of the same class in a particular file and make use of it. It doesn't seem likely. Maybe it's not coming to my head because I've not had to do that. But in the end,
sorry.
right? Like, yes, go ahead.
But sorry now, as this code is now, if you run it, like what's gonna be, how is it gonna behave? I'm curious, like to
Of
see how
course,
it's
this
gonna behave because
I love your curiosity using this particular thing. So even if I run this, it won't work. There's nothing that will do because this is unused. So let me satisfy your curiosity. Let me use this one instead, which is the second one, right?
okay.
Let me do this. Sorry.
But you know that you know that
Hold
you know that
on.
act
Yeah, go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
know that this builder function that we are passing to the get builder, the function there, the controller is going to be passed into the function when it is being called by the get builder or
That's why
whatever is calling it.
when you see you're seeing this, right? You're seeing me hover on this. We are passing this
Mm-hmm.
controller, right, to this what we are saying that look, this get builder takes this what controller. This is more like is like more like you're extending, more like a type kind of thing, right? This is the controller you're using to
Mm-hmm.
what play around or to get access or do whatever you need to do. Now, here in this builder, you need an instance of the controller. It can be anything, it can be any class, right? But you need an instance to be able to perform whatever action or whatever it is that you need to. And of course, you're not going to pass in two instances. It takes just one.
Good. Okay. Okay.
I don't know if
All
your
right. All
curiosity
right.
has been satisfied. Don't worry. I enjoy your curiosity actually. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, so that's actually for states. That's state management, right? When it comes to GetX, right? That's state management when it comes to GetX. So let's move to um dependency injection, right? Let's move to dependency injection, but we're just looking at it now from the GetX way, right? Because so GetX provides a very simple way to manage dependencies by allowing you to just inject and access your controllers and services easily. So now you can use, I'm going to just use, which you've already seen here, get.put, right? So what this actually does is that you're adding to the dependency injection system. This get.put, right? This is what a form of dependency injection in GetX. We also have get.find. Let me just show you get.find, right? So this will basically just retrieve, let's say get.find, and I want to pass in counter, sorry. what do you want to find? The counter controller, right? So what this will do is that this will retrieve the controller. If probably we have initialized it or instantiated it, right? This is just to what? Find the controller, retrieve it for me. Now we also have lazy loading. GetX actually does lazy loading using we have the get dot what lazy put, where we can now actually put in, we'll use this one in, yeah, we'll use it in this our project that we're working on, right? Counter controller, right? So this will lazily put the what basically what this means is that it will just instantiate this dependency only when it is needed, right? Only when it is actually what's needed, right? So this is more like lazy, you're lazy loading a controller, right? And yeah, we'll use this. I'll make sure we use this during our during this the course of this particular application we are building. Then the last one, remember we talked about three things. We talked about state management, dependency injection. With GetX, it is simple. It's simple. It has a very powerful routing system. Now it has what we call the named routes, where, so let me just show you, like as we want to move from one screen to another. So let me okay, we are in home. So let me just create a let me create a this thing quickly. Where do I do that? Okay, let me just do it here. So let's say home2 dot dart. Right. Let's just say stateless widgets, call it home2, and let's just return okay, let's just use a scaffold so that we'll have the app bar. Uh, the title actually is a widget, so just going to say let me call it home2, right? Yeah, I think that's fine. Just I don't want to do okay. So yeah, so once we're able to kind of move from one of these screens to another, from home to another routing, right? So let's use this floating action button, right? So we don't want to kind of do this for now. So with you can use, of course, before you see stuff, you use stuff like navigation dots, this and all that, right? With getters, all you can just do is say get dot to. So get to, just think of it like an English. So you have get to, right? So this will just this pushes a new page to the stack. We talked about before the class started, right? With GetX, you don't need context, right? So you can actually call stuff from your business logic. You don't actually need context, right? You can set transitions and all those stuff. So let's say just do the simple one. Get to, so which page, right? That should be home 2, right? That's where we want to go to. Okay, so let's just run that, and then I'm just going to click on the plus, and yeah, it takes us to home2, which gives us a back button also that we can go back to, right? So that's actually that, right? Actually, and this line of code, that's all. You've kind of moved from one screen to another, right? Now it also has what we call named routes, right? You saw this get dot to named, right? This is you going to this is a story whereby each of your pages has a name, so you can go to a named what route in a bit of a shabbish way though, but while building this application, we'll try to do things in a bit more orderly, right? So where we have our get material app, we have a property called get pages. So this is basically going to be a list of what pages, right? A list of what pages, a list of screens. So we use the method, it has a thing called get page. You give it a name, right? Now here I'm just going to add this, and then the page name, the page actually, you can see it requires a widget function, right? It requires a widget function. So I'm going to just do this, and then I can just pass in home what page. We have home, right? Good. And then I'll just duplicate for home too. So here you put all your, every of your page. Of course, you can see that um in the, is that okay, import it. So you can see that in the long run, if you have a lot of pages, right, it's going to be messy. Right? If you have about, imagine having about 30, 20, 30 pages, right? It's not cool for this your main, right, to what be too long. Your main file shouldn't be, kind of, you shouldn't have too much stuff there. So of course, it's something you can abstract to a separate file. We'll do doing serious stuff, right? So after adding get pages, now in we now give it an initial what route, right? Our initial route basically what is just, you can see that excuse me, it's just operators that it actually was. You just need to give it like an instance or a reserved word or something, right? In our case, we just want to use this, right? So our initial route will be whatever we actually just listen. So let's say, so with this, I can now go to my home and say get to named, and all I have to do is just pass it and say, I think we called it, so let me remember the name. Here's our main, we have a lot of, I need to close stuff. So uh let me just close some of these things that we did. What home, okay. So yeah, so for this one, of course, this is going to be the initial route, okay, because it just has this. Now the name, this other one, we can call it, we can actually give it the basically just a particular class, right? It's basically just a particular what class. The second one will be slash home two. If I had profile, I could use this slash profile. If I had settings, I could do this slash settings and the like. So I'm just going to copy this, right? So that I do not make any do any, yeah. So okay, so let's save that and let's see if that works. Okay, so we have an error. Let's see. So we have a null check operator on a null value, right? So let's see where we have that issue. Okay. Um, Initial route is this. Okay. So let's see. On pressed get dot to named. Okay. Dash home two. I think we're good. Um, let's just rerun this to be sure. We're having a null issue here, so I need to find out where exactly that is. Okay, so yeah, let's see, exception, scaffold, went through, and this was the stack. Okay, so it's in our home, right? And then so the question is, what is our null value? Let's find out. Let's do some debugging right now. Let's see. Trying to look for a particular. Each child must be rendered at least once in line 11. So we have scaffold about this, right? Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's check. I think there may be home two. We're good here. We're all good here. Theme controller. So we're actually on our home. So this is, did I take out something? I'm trying to remember if I took out anything from this. Uh, let me see. I don't think let me just to put back something. Okay, no, it's not this. I think it was in the main. Okay. I think I'm missing out something. Um, let's just do this. So this is all part of debugging. So to know if, let's use this instead. Just need to be sure what exactly where we are having this error. So let's see. Let's refresh that again. Oh, sorry. I was muted actually. So I was saying that, where is this guy? Yeah, so we had not, kind of put in the dependency. We have not actually, kind of created this, right? We hadn't called this get.put. So of course, if you haven't imputed that dependency, that will actually throw. So that's the whole null error we're having, right? Okay, so, and then of course, as you can see, we were able to navigate, right? We're able to what, move from one screen to another using the get.named. Now, so you can also navigate, without a context, right? Without needing the whole context stuff, right? And we talked about, I think I mentioned that actually. So let's, of course, you can see that we are not actually passing in any context. Here, I can decide to do something on this page. That's home 2. Let me just make this text clickable, right? I could just say, um, sorry, the text. I want to wrap it with a widget. Let's use the gesture detector. So it will detect an on tap. So when there is a tap, we want it to do something. And now what I want it to do, I want it to go back, right? I want to, and it has what we call the get dot what back, right? Now, also here, let's say I can also call get here, right? So this is what we are saying, that you don't actually need a what context, right? I can call get dot back. I can so let's actually do this. I can say get dot to um sorry, just a second. Can you still see my screen?
I can't see the screen now.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, just a second. My external display got disconnected, so let me just fix that quickly. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, so just to confirm, you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, okay. So, so
Yes,
I
sir.
want to, yeah, I want to now I want to see if I can navigate from my controller was class, right? If you check this controller, there's no context. There's nothing. There's no context there. So I can just say get.home too. So let's see if we can just play a funny game here. Um, so where is our home? Right, good. So I'm gonna bring back this controller here. I'm gonna say this is actually counter controller dot increment. So what do I want to do? Let me also print count. So I want to this is a I want to kind of update, right? When I increase the number, then I want to navigate, right? We're basically just testing out, okay, how can does it actually work? Can you actually navigate without context from a file which doesn't even have context in it? So let's test that. Okay, I think my phone device disconnected. So let me bring it SCRC. So just call that. Okay, so my phone actually disconnected, so I have to run it again. So yeah, let's just hold on a bit for it to run. Yeah, but that's basically, so this is basically all about the route management. Now there's a lot of other stuff, right, which we will get to implement, right, once we start, when we continue on our Storzy application, right. There's a lot of other stuff. There is get dot to named. There is get. There are other kinds of routing, right. Wait, let this just launch before I tamper with this code. Okay, so just there is let me show you. Let's go to the controller. Yeah, so you have stuff like get dots and bring this. You have get dot to, you have get dot to the end, so just like whatever it is to the stack. We have get off and to named. Now you're going to use this especially if you're going to use named routes. The scenario where you have a splash screen. After the splash screen, you probably go to onboarding, right? After your onboarding, of course, your user should not be able to go back and go and see. Maybe after onboarding, you're now either on the home page or the login page or sign up page. Your user should not be able to click back and then go back to the onboarding again. So we can that's where get off and to named in actually comes in. Of course, to name that if you're using the named routes, right? So it will pop the current named page and pushes a new page to the stack in this place. So what that basically means is that let's say from your onboarding screens, right? From the last one where you now do a get dot off and to named, right? It's now what takes the home, let's say home from onboarding to home. It takes home up the stack and then pushes every other thing. Now you cannot go back, right? You cannot go back to, what's it called, to the previous system because it's now off. It's off, right? So that's those are just little some other routing stuff that gets actually what has. My device is actually dragging a bit, right? But so I think this is something you guys will try out for me and let me know on the Discord if you were able to navigate, from here, right, to another page, right? We're using get without context. We're trying to navigate without any context at all. So you do that for me and let me know on the channel if you are able to succeed. Of course you should be, but I would want you guys to actually try that out. Collins, go ahead.
Okay, on mobile apps, there's this kind of navigation where, let's say you have like a bottom navigation bar. Hmm? Might have home, something else, settings, profile, and everything, bottom navigation bar, such that if you move from home to settings, the bottom navigation bar will still be showing. I don't
Yeah.
know if those is that concept in get to.
Of course, it is very, very much. We actually, well, this our app uses navigation drawer instead. But let's see, we'll probably just do one that uses bottom navigation,
Oh,
right? But the one we're going to
yes, yes.
build actually uses a navigation. So it's basically just the same, it's still the same concept. Doesn't matter whether bottom or side, but it has a navigation. We're going to be doing a
Okay.
navigation, using a navigation drawer, right? Now, but the same thing applies, right? It's all about now, your what's it called? Your scaffold, actually has a bottom navigation bar. So what you basically just have to do is, of course, you can just create a custom widget that you reuse, and then such that you just pass in a boolean or something, or you probably have to, each of those pages, you have to, for the bottom navigation bar, the bottom navigation bar property, you just pass in a custom, bottom navigation that you have created already. You
Okay.
understand?
Like you abstract the navigation bar as a widget in
Yes,
Zoom and
you
put it to
abstract
any
it.
code.
Yes, you abstract it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because of course you don't need to start kind of designing it in every of those screens. So you just have a custom navigation UI which you have, right? You put it in a separate file, and all you have to do is just kind of call it in each of those settings or profile or all those things, because you need to pass in a widget to that. And what the thing about bottom navigation, right? Of course, each page has to have a scaffold. Then there's that constraint there, because scaffold is what gives you the
Yeah.
ability to have a bottom navigation bar, right? That's why those pages are kind of like special pages. Every other one you may not have you may not, right? It's not compulsory. You may not
Yeah.
have a scaffold. You can decide to have let's say a single child scroll view, and then you're returning a sized box, or you're returning a container that now has a list and a lot of other stuff, because it's not all, you may not even want that particular page to have an app bar. So if you don't want the page to have an app bar, then you don't actually need a scaffold. So
Mm.
everything is all about just design, right? Implementation, how your design is, and how you actually want to implement it. But for the bottom navigation stuff, yes, it does. And I'll find a way for us to also, maybe if we are done with the when we are done with the store Z, we'll try to now kind of
Yeah.
tweak it to use a bottom navigation bar.
Oh.
Okay, so yeah, any other question? Uh let's round this up here. Okay, so guys, let's so I'm going to, I think I said I was going to put, I have actually pushed this code. I don't think I gave you guys. So I'm going to drop the link to, it's actually it's a public it's a public repository, right? So I'm going to drop the link to the repo so you can have access to the codes, right? There are two, well, this is going to be the third branch. You have the main branch, right? That's just, kind of the skeletal stuff. The first branch should be, I think, setup, right? That's where the previous class, right, is in that branch. And then everything we just did here, I'm going to push that to a branch called FT class 2, right? So we're just going to be having branches for each of our classes, right? So that we can, keep track of what we actually was accomplished in a particular class based on the project, we are trying to, or the app we are trying to build, okay? So um before the end of tomorrow, today, so just run this, try it out, send your screenshots, and then let's know that we are on the same page. So thank you very much for your time. We're going to have a more extensive class on Thursday, building stuff. So I hope to see you there and on time. Thank you and have a wonderful day.